Hello there, I'm Chaos the Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. And on this episode, well, before we get into it, make sure, if you're new to the channel, to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And on this episode, we're going to discuss Mansa Abu Bakr II, ruler, explorer, how one man abdicated his throne to explore the world. And without further ado, let's get into it. The legend of how Mansa Abu Bakr II of Mali gave up the throne to explore the Atlantic Ocean. Mansa, meaning king, emperor, or sultan, Abu Bakr II was a 14th century ruler of the Mali Empire in West Africa. This period of time, i.e. the 14th century, was a time when the Mali Empire had reached its pinnacle. The wealth of the Mali Empire can be seen in the famous pilgrimage of Masu, Abu Bakr's second immediate successor to Mecca. According to Arab historians, this ruler spent so much gold during his pilgrimage that the rate of the gold dinar fell by 6 silver dirhams. The empire's peace and stability may have allowed a rather bizarre episode in Abu Bakr's reign to take place. According to Syrian historian al-Umari, who met Musa in Cairo, the Malian ruler's predecessor had abdicated his throne so that he could explore the Atlantic Ocean. Not that many people would be willing to give up gold, riches, and power to sail the 7 seas. But hey, some people prefer to live a life worth living than a life of comfort and subjugation. The story of Abu Bakr from his successor. Very little is known about the life of Abu Bakr, and the only known written account about him at present may be found in the work of al-Umari. It may be interesting to note that this account of Abu Bakr comes from the mouth of his successor, Musa, and seems to be an explanation of how the latter came to power. One English translation of al-Umari's conversation with Musa is as follows. Quote, so Abu Bakr equipped 200 ships filled with men and the same number equipped with gold, water, and provisions, enough to last them for years. They departed. A long time passed before anyone came back. Then one ship returned, and we asked the captain what news they brought. He said, yes, O Sultan, we traveled for a long time until there appeared in the open sea a river with a powerful current. The other ships went on ahead, but when they reached that place, they did not return, and no more was seen of them. As for me, I went about at once and did not enter the river. The Sultan got ready 2,000 ships, 1,000 for himself and the men whom he took with him, and 1,000 for water and provisions. He left me to deputies for him and embarked on the Atlantic Ocean with his men. That was the last we saw of him and all those who were with him, and so I became king on my own right. End quote. It makes me think, because he said the Atlantic Ocean, and that immediately makes me think of going up a river. That makes me think of the Mississippi. Just, off the top of my head. It just immediately makes me think of Mississippi. Very interesting. Well, because, the Moors were in North America. They were already Aborigine Americans in North America, black-skinned people. To make it easier for those to understand what I mean by that. So if you're curious about, that whole story and that narrative, I highly recommend you check out the book. It was told in reverse by Dan Calloway. So just to me personally, it makes me think of the Mississippi. It could be anything else. It could be somewhere else, but that's just the first thing that comes off of mind to me. Because we know that there were Moors in Florida. And what's down near Florida? The Mississippi. So just something to keep in mind if you ever decide to further investigate this individual and what happened when he traveled up this so-called river. Here we have a artistic representation of the empire of Mansa Musa. Whilst the aim of this story was to explain the way in which Musa gained the throne of the Mali Empire, heralding the beginning of a new lineage of rulers, there seems to be much more focus in modern times on the actions of Abu Bakr. And I could see why. Why did he leave? Where did he go? And what remnants of his travels could we uncover? If the words of Masu and Al-Marwi are to be taken as reliable, this tale is not found in any other African or Arabic source, with the exception perhaps of oral tradition. Then the Mansa's abdication and subsequent voyage into the Atlantic Ocean may be considered as events that actually took place. So here we have an illustration of Abu Bakr riding in his ships. A voyage to the New World. Yet there are those who are not content to stop where Al-Umari's narrative ends, and have extrapolated the tale. Instead of merely sailing on the Atlantic Ocean, Abu Bakr is speculated to have sailed across this body of water and even reached the Americans. Evidence that seemed to support such claims have never been presented. There may have no evidence of him. We don't know of him, but there is evidence of Moors in North America. The Egyptians talked about being able to island hop their way to the Americans, to North America. If you know anything about the Grand Canyon and the supposed Egyptian artifacts that were uncovered there, then it's no surprise to believe that people were able to make it to North America. You look at I believe the Phoenicians. They're this incredible sailing society. What are the chances that they may have made their way to North America? We know that the Egyptians made their way to Ireland. There were Celtic warriors who were hired mercenaries that were fighting in Egypt. So I'm just saying, To push back a little bit on the author of this article, there is no evidence that is allowed to be presented to us. Most often than not, you have to search for these types of information because it's suppressed purposely. They don't want people to know about these types of stories and narratives because it takes away their ability to control people, to keep people suppressed, to keep people ignorant and blindsided. So, I highly recommend people out there do your own research and don't just take it for word and verbatim. Place names on old maps, for example, are said to show that Abu Bakr and his men had landed in the New World. The Malians are claimed to have named certain places after themselves, such as Mandinga Port, Mandinga Bay, and Sierra de Mali. The exact locations of such sites, however, are unclear, as one source states that these places are in Haiti, whilst another puts them in the region of Mexico. So here we have an illustration of Muslims, some say including Mansa II, meeting with Native Americans. Another common argument is that metal goods from West Africa were discovered by Columbus when he arrived in the Americas. One source claims that Columbus himself reported that he had obtained metal goods of West African origin from the Native Americans. Another source asserts that chemical analysis of gold tips found by Columbus on spears in the Americas show that the gold probably came from West Africa. Many other examples of purported Melanian presence in the New World have also been given, including skeletons, inscriptions, a building that looked like a mosque, linguistic analysis, and carvings said to depict Malians. Such evidence, however, is not entirely convincing, as the sources that list them do not provide additional information or references to further support their claims. For example, rather than merely stating that places named by the Malians were found on old maps, it may be more persuasive if credible examples to these old maps were given. So, uh, I agree with what they're saying. He's making some good points. Um, but what is there to not say that there aren't maps that they are? I mean, that they do have these maps, but they're locked away. They're hidden in museums, locked in vaults. I mean, we know that the Smithsonian is no stranger to locking away countless artifacts that would completely rewrite the narrative that has been presented to the American people. It's no different than in Europe. Check out my interview I did with Canon Hotep on his channel, where I discuss this very interesting and suspicious bloodline that traces to a extinct humanoid race. You can look at giants throughout North America, the articles, and the department in the Smithsonian that was tasked with collecting giant artifacts and hiding them, destroying them, suppressing the information. So it's very commonplace for our society to behave in such a manner, and most often than not, it's the whole concept of um, the the history is written by the victors. And I would say that is completely and 100% accurately, but also the lies are written by the victors. And how much of that victory is really a lie? That is something to really take into account and to take into consideration when you're learning about the past and the history. Why, who's telling you that this history, and why is it being told to you in such a manner? These are things that people really need to take into consideration about this world that we inhabit and live in. But I digress. Let's get back to it. Alrighty. Enough of that Ronin rant. Okay, here we are. Given that the present evidence of Abu Bakr's voyage to the Americas is unconvincing at best and non-existent at worst, it seems unlikely that the Malian ruler had reached the New World during his expedition into the Atlantic Ocean. Nevertheless, the tale of Abu Bakr's abdication and exploration of the Atlantic, once again, if Musa and Al-Mumar are to be believed, is a fantastic one, tantamount perhaps to a modern world leader quitting his or her job to become an astronaut. That's not a bad example. And there you have it. The mysterious case of Mansa Abu Bakr II. Now, as I said before, I have my suspicions, and I do believe possible that this individual did exist, and that he did make it to North America. Like I was saying earlier, I know that they thoroughly enjoyed to um, hide and lie about our history, so much so that it's becoming laughable at this point. So we don't really tend to subscribe to the idea that we are more than what the government society tells us, because we're constantly being manipulated and goaded into living a lie, believing a lie, practicing a lie. And with stories like this individual, like Mansa, we're told that it's entirely impossible. He could never have done these kind of things, what have you. But then if you delve deep enough into the studies, you end up finding out that it's entirely possible. When you delve deep enough into the studies, you'll learn that the the Caribbean islanders, their canoes were faster than Spanish galleons and could hold up to 70 people. When you hear about these stories, then you tend to ask yourself and realize, what else are we really being lied about? What else are we being manipulated about? So I highly recommend people out there, look into these type of stories. There are so many to be told, and like I said, Randall Carlson, talked about Solon and how he interacted with Egyptian priests, and they were discussing how they were able to, at one point, make their way to North America by island hopping. But now those islands no longer exist there. Uh, so they've you know in essence, we really don't know the truth. And if you've looked back at some of my live streams and some of the topics I've covered, you'll realize, how often we're being lied to. And that's why I really enjoy covering small uh, historical uh, mysterious figures such as Mansu Abu, because As much as they tend to say it's fantastical, it's unlikely, um, eventually the truth comes out and there is actual evidence. There is archaeological evidence, written evidence, what have you. So I highly recommend people out there, go out there, always do your own research, always ask questions, always challenge the narrative. Because as much as they want to tell you to not question things, to not believe in things, they're preventing you from being the best version of yourself. They're preventing you from being able to fully utilize your intelligence by purposely dumbing you down, by purposely dumbing down history. So I recommend everyone challenge the narrative, question the narrative, and don't be afraid to do your own studies. It'll make you a better person, a more knowledgeable person, a more patient person, and most importantly, a more mindful person. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you've made it this far, please make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And please leave a comment with your thoughts below. And make sure to sprinkle in a little bit of that constructive criticism, as it helps me and the channel grow. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much, much love.